Listen, TLDR of everything, there's a big problem with Crucible. Okay? There's a big issue in my eyes with Crucible, potentially. And I haven't really been able to find a solution. Nothing that chat's presented so far has been a sufficient solution either. But basically the way that Crucible works, if you scroll down here, it says that it's an iconic path of exile way. You know, your weapons can now be imbued with powerful things and blah, blah, blah. Encounters at the Crucible forges grant you experience that lets you uncover the tree on a weapon and gradually progress through its skills. Sounds really cool. Sounds like a very cool mechanic. It's a lot of power creep seamlessly with no cost, and you just get to make a cool ass weapon, right? It's not exactly crafting, but it's cool. And so how do you do this? You have to go to the Crucible, yes. And when you go to the Crucible, like it says, it uncovers the tree. And once you have uncovered the tree, you can right click to view the Crucible passive tree. You cannot do this from the beginning. You can only do this after doing a single Crucible encounter. We assume that it's just one, but maybe you have to get enough XP for it to be an entire one. And that's cool. You can see some modifiers here. There's minions have 250 accuracy, you know, some attack speed. These are strong things, really strong. Increased strength, increased intelligence. But why is it a problem? And why am I a bit wary of this system? I'm very wary of the system. Well, it is because if the skill trees are immediately fully revealed, then you're going to have to pick up every weapon if you want a base weapon. And you're going to have to check what the skill tree on that weapon is, so that then you can proceed to craft that weapon and make sure that your weapon that you end up crafting and putting all your currency into has a good Crucible tree that supports your thing. That's a problem, because you can only do one Crucible per map. And already in the Q&A, Chris said that you can do Crucible and Quarry, but those Crucibles gives you very little XP. Okay? Which means that you would go into a map. Let's say you're trying to craft a Siege Axe. You would pick up every 83 Siege Axe, which you're going to drop hundreds of in a single map. And you would then proceed to go to Quarry and run Crucible to check the trees on that weapon to get your perfect weapon. That's bad. But this is a case where you're trying to craft a weapon, and some people were saying that that's not a problem. You can merge trees. Okay, first of all, merging trees is not guaranteed. Like recombinators, there's a situation where you will not end up with a merged tree that you actually want. But let's say that that's actually the case. Let's say you're prioritizing a specific craft and you need to use a fractured base item, or maybe an item that has an influence that you can't acquire by using some other means, whatever. You need a base influence, you need a fracture. Okay, so now you have the fracture modifier on your weapon. And now you're doing the same thing, because guess what? You need to find a weapon that then you're going to combine with your current weapon, and you're just going to have to hope that the end result of the combination is the thing that you want. So you're still looking for a weapon to combine. It's just not your primary base. It's just another layer of RNG. That's big concern. And there doesn't seem to be a solution to it, because if they make the trees revealed, then you're still going to have to do the same process, but it's going to take a longer amount of time. Or if they're revealed, then you're going to have to do it once, and then you do it on another weapon, another weapon, another weapon, until you eventually find something good. And if they make it so that they're not immediately revealed, you're going to have to do it a bunch of times on a single weapon, come to the conclusion that the Crucible tree that you're getting is not good, and move on to another weapon. Which is, yeah, I don't know if that's particularly great. But then, let's assume, best case scenario, you get incredibly lucky. You get a weapon that's fantastic immediately. It's perfect for your build. You can craft your endgame weapon immediately. Do you stop doing this? Well, no. Because as they've mentioned, if you're lucky, you'll find certain skills that then allocated are worth valuable currency or unique items when sold to a vendor. And in the trailer, they've shown that when sold to a vendor, these items give you a divine orb. Things of most likely what's going to be, you know, difficult to acquire currency, unlike in Sanctum. So if you're playing SSF, if you want to make money in the normal league, whatever, doing these things doesn't take a whole lot of time. But it does take a lot of effort to be able to accomplish this. And so because of this, if there's no solution to essentially having to do this to min-max your gameplay, which I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people in the comment section who are going to be like, oh my god, if you're doing this to yourself. I'm just not gonna do it. That's cool. That's fine. I think a lot of people in Path of Exile don't play the game that way. I think most people are trying to optimize as much as possible. They use build guides, they use path of building. They do these things to maximize their efficiency, to maximize their potential character customizability, and like have an end result that's as strong as they possibly can. And so it's pretty difficult to get away from this, yeah. And so I don't know. I don't quite know what the solution is. I hope that it's just good, but nothing really comes to mind that solves it as of right now. If it takes a full map to check one base, that's one weapon per map. Okay, I guess I can address that too. It's not one weapon per map, because the limiting factor isn't the amount of crucibles, is the amount of weapons. Because as already confirmed, Crucible works in Quarry. So to check the first tree, you would go to Quarry to check. So you can pick up all of the weapons and then just run Quarry to check. What if Quarry doesn't work to reveal the tree? You do it in tier 1 maps. It'll work 100% of the time. If you need XP or whatever, it'll take longer. And maybe, yeah, maybe... I think the best possible solution for right now, for them, would be to not have the trees revealed. Unfortunately, have it be a very large variance and only reveal it node by node. And this way, you're only ever focusing on one weapon that's most likely equipped in your offhand, and you get it to a sufficient point of leveled, and then you conclude, okay, is this good and I want to use it, or is this bad and I want to drop it? Or, you know, the first 2 nodes are bad and you drop it and you go with another one. It's like a single weapon focus rather than revealing the full thing and then having to see it. But there's another problem, which is how do you trade these weapons? They said that the functionality on the trade website was most likely not going to be there. The Crucible trees aren't going to be checkable in that way. What they've shown us so far is that you can see this, and if you were to Control C to get the text on items, as you can in PoE in general for any item, and you can copy paste it to tools and all that sort of stuff, it would show you in the text the actual allocated modifier. And so if you're trying to trade a weapon, somebody can have one with the perfect tree, but this wouldn't even show for you, because it's only the ones that are allocated that would show. And this introduces another problem, which would be if this item would be a white item with allocated points or non-allocated points, but you can see the rest of the tree, somebody can just give you an item that's not the one that you're trying to trade for, and there's going to be no way for you to confirm it because the points have to be allocated for you to see this. This is definitely solvable, but it's one of those things where it needs to be good from the get-go. Otherwise, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to take advantage of this and use it to scam other people in, you know, the most bizarre of ways, as, you know, Path of Exile scammers are incredibly creative. So this is definitely solvable. It doesn't seem as rigid in its issues as the other issue, but they really need to do it well from the beginning. And having no access to the trade website might end up being a good thing because yeah, it's gonna give them more time to really figure out what's the best possible way forward with this system. There's another picture which says, click and hold to spawn molten monsters. Defeating the molten monsters will award experience towards unlocking a Crucible passive skill tree on this item, which again indicates that it unlocks the full thing. But if it unlocks the full thing, that means that you're gonna be looking for a base weapon that's going to be your perfect one for probably a long time. Either way. So I don't know. I really don't know what they're gonna come up with on this. Crucible looks very cool. I think the mechanic is super cool, but this to me seems like an immediate issue that doesn't have any super obvious solutions as of right now. So I hope that GGG can explain some of these things and maybe put me a little bit at ease, because yeah, it would really suck to play the video game that way. Item sells for an additional unique CJAX. That's cool as hell. I really don't want to pick up every weapon to see this. I think no matter what, the best possible solution to this is to have it so that you're focusing on one weapon and you're revealing things one by one. Because it does seem like the strongest nodes are there towards the end. I believe Chris has said as much during the trailer. And so if you're just fishing for additional properties to vendor the weapon, then just getting to the end is going to be good if they're revealing one by one. But then that might be tricky also, because you can only have like one node allocated on one level. So in the case of this weapon, the most efficient thing wouldn't be, let's say that this is a bad node, yeah? The most efficient thing wouldn't be to drop this weapon on the ground, because you can scour these nodes. And since these two nodes are already revealed, you wouldn't want to drop it on the ground and get another one. You would want to scour this node, and then allocate this node and this node. And then once you figure out that this node is bad, you scour this one and allocate this one. And so I think that's okay, because again, you're focusing on one weapon. You're not focusing on picking up weapons from the ground. But is it a flawless solution? I think for vendoring weapons, it's fine. But it doesn't seem particularly great when you're just trying to find a weapon that you're actually going to be using yourself, because it just adds so much variance. We don't know enough about the system. Maybe the power of these items is somehow normalized dependent on the base. But even if we're talking about using a wand, for instance, right? You're going to be playing a caster build that uses hit damage, or uses crit, or scales with damage over time. And depending on those things, you're going to want different properties for your weapon. And so I don't know how much normalizing they can do across these nodes. Who knows? Maybe the tier of the map, because they're saying that it reveals the tree, yeah? But maybe the skill trees, the Crucible trees, aren't programmed into the item from the get-go. Maybe at the time of you revealing the item, the level of the Crucible determines the tier of the mods. That could be the case. That if you're trying to reveal an item level 83 item, you want to run as high of a level Crucible as possible to potentially have a highest chance of getting the modifiers that you want. Do I think it's gonna work like that? I don't think so. But you know, it's possible. We just can't know. Again, there are solutions, but I don't think there's a solution that's perfect across the board. And that's really the problem, and why, you know, I'm bringing it up, because I really want Crucible to be really good. Like, it looks so cool. Even from a gameplay point of view, I enjoyed the ultimatum-y sort of things, but this is something that they need to get correctly from the beginning. They can't have this be something that they solve later on with enough gameplay and enough people leaving and complaining and all these things. They need to nail this. It could be that this is not an issue in general because everything is good. or not an issue because everything is so bad that you don't even care about any of these things? Maybe, but I would prefer for it to be a well-rounded good system, and that's kind of what I'm expecting for GGG, you know? Again, I'm sure that there's plenty of people who are going to look at it and then they're going to go, lol, look at this thing. You can actually see the skill tree, so I could be picking up weapons and dropping them on the ground and revealing shit in Quarry. Fuck that. That sounds boring. I'm just not going to do it. I'm sure there's plenty of people who would do something like that. But again, I think the majority of people who would be aware of that form of abuse case, they would fully commit to it. Most people are going to be unaware. Most people aren't going to take advantage of it unless it gets brought up to like the public, yeah? But yeah, I hope that none of these things are going to be an issue. We're just gonna have to wait and see. This is like my feedback, my concern. It's the biggest reason why I think this league might run into a problem, and so I wanted to talk about it.